The first time my husband called our baby a mistake, I froze. The second time, I recorded everything. But he already had his own video and said, "Mine will destroy you first." He stood in our bedroom doorway with his phone in his hand, his face still and almost bored, like he had already written the ending and was just waiting for me to play my role. I was shaking. My throat hurt from trying not to cry. My baby was screaming in the nursery, and all I could think was that if I looked too emotional, Daniel would use it against me. That was what he wanted. A broken wife. A dangerous mother. A woman no one would believe. He lifted his phone higher and smiled. "Keep going," he said. "You look exactly how I need you to look." That was the moment I understood. Daniel wasn't losing control. He was building a story. And in his story, I was going to lose my son. Before Henry was born, I used to tell myself my marriage was just going through a hard season. That sounds foolish now, but it didn't feel foolish at the time. It felt normal in the way slow damage can start to feel normal. One comment. One cold look. One apology that sounds sincere enough to make you question your own memory. Daniel wasn't cruel when I met him. At least not openly. He was attentive. He remembered small things. If I mentioned I liked a certain kind of coffee, he brought it the next time he saw me. If I said I was nervous about something, he listened so carefully it made me feel chosen. When we moved into our townhouse, I thought we were building a peaceful life. It had a small kitchen, a narrow hallway, and just enough space for a nursery someday. I loved that place at first. I loved the quiet mornings, the soft light through the blinds, the way ordinary things felt safe. One Sunday, while I was drying dishes and he was washing them, Daniel looked around and said, "This is what I wanted." "What?" I asked. "A home." I believed him. That is the part people judge from the outside. They ask why you didn't see it sooner. They ask why you stayed. They imagine the first warning sign arrives loud enough to scare you away. It doesn't. Sometimes it arrives sounding like concern. Daniel started with money. He said we needed to be careful. I agreed. Then he said he should manage the accounts because he was better at it. I agreed to that too. Then he started questioning every small purchase. One evening, he stood in the kitchen holding a receipt. "You bought the expensive laundry detergent." "It was on sale," I said. "That's not the point." "What is the point?" "The point is you act like money just appears." I stared at him because I was contributing too. Maybe not as much as he was, but enough that I shouldn't have had to defend basic groceries. Still, I apologized. That became a pattern. He accused. I explained. He criticized. I apologized. He moved the line. I tried to meet it. Then I got pregnant. I found out early in the morning. I remember standing in the bathroom, holding the test with both hands, staring at the two lines until my vision blurred. "Daniel," I called. He came to the doorway, irritated until he saw my face. I turned the test around. For a second, he went completely still. Then he smiled and hugged me. "We're going to be parents," he said. I cried into a shirt because I wanted that moment to be real. For a little while, I convinced myself it was. He came to appointments. He talked about baby names. He helped me look at cribs online. Sometimes at night, he touched my stomach when Henry kicked, and I thought maybe the stress between us would soften once the baby came. But pregnancy did not make Daniel gentler. It made him colder. By the second trimester, I was exhausted all the time. My feet swelled. My back hurt. Some mornings, I could barely stand the smell of toast without getting sick. One night, I sat on the edge of the bed trying to pull on jeans that no longer fit. I was frustrated and embarrassed by how emotional I felt over something so small. Daniel walked in, looked me up and down, and sighed. "You're really letting yourself go." I looked at him, waiting for the joke. There wasn't one. "I'm pregnant," I said quietly. "I know. But pregnancy isn't an excuse to stop caring." I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and turned on the shower so he wouldn't hear me cry. After that, the comments came more often. "You're eating again? That doesn't look good on you. You used to make an effort." He said those things so casually that sometimes I wondered if I was too sensitive. But my body knew before my mind did. I started changing clothes before he came home. I stopped eating in front of him unless he was eating too. I smiled when I wanted to disappear. My mother, Carol, noticed. She came over one afternoon with soup because I had been sick all morning. Daniel was out. I was moving around the kitchen quietly, trying not to make too much noise, even though he wasn't home. Carol watched me for a long moment. "Honey," she said, "are you okay?" I laughed too fast. "I'm just tired." Tired doesn't make you flinch when a car door closes. I looked away. That was the first time I almost told someone. I almost said he was changing. I almost said I was scared of the way he looked at me. But then I imagined Daniel finding out and saying, "So now you're making me look like a monster?" So I swallowed it. I told my mother I was fine. I told myself every couple struggled before a baby. I told myself he was stressed. I told myself fatherhood would change him. Then Henry was born. Labor lasted almost a full day. By the end, I was too tired to be afraid. I remember the lights above me, the nurse telling me to breathe, my sister Rachel holding my hand so tightly her fingers turned white. When they placed Henry on my chest, the room disappeared. He was tiny, warm, and furious. His dark hair was pressed to his head. His little mouth opened in a cry that somehow broke me and healed me at the same time. "Hi, baby," I whispered. My mother covered her mouth and cried. Rachel whispered, "He's perfect." Daniel stood near the end of the bed. At first, I thought he was overwhelmed. "Do you want to come closer?" I asked. He stepped forward slowly and looked down at our son. Henry looked like me. My eyes. My hair. My mother's cheeks. He looked like every baby photo Carol kept in old albums. Rachel smiled through tears and said, "He's all Amanda." I thought it was sweet. Daniel did not. His face changed so quickly that I wondered if I imagined it. The softness disappeared. His jaw tightened. "He doesn't look like me," he said. I gave a tired little laugh. Newborns change. He didn't answer. Later, after my mother and sister stepped out, the room became too quiet. Henry was asleep beside me. I was sore, weak, and still trying to understand how my body had survived the last 24 hours. Daniel stood by the bassinet. He didn't touch Henry. He just stared. Then he said, "Who does he belong to?" I blinked. "What?" He looked at me with disgust. "Don't play stupid." "Daniel, what are you talking about? That baby doesn't look like mine. He is yours." "I want proof." I tried to sit up, but pain shot through my body. "I have never cheated on you," I whispered. He leaned closer, keeping his voice low enough that no one outside the room would hear. "I'm not raising another man's child. I had just given birth." I was bleeding, shaking, and holding our newborn son, and my husband was accusing me of betraying him. I wanted to call my mother back into the room. I wanted a nurse to walk in and hear him. I wanted someone to tell him he was being cruel. But shame is a strange thing. Even when you have done nothing wrong, someone else's accusation can make you feel exposed. So I whispered, "Please stop." Daniel straightened his shirt. "We'll talk at home." But we didn't talk at home. He punished me. Quietly at first. He refused to feed Henry. If I asked him to hold the baby so I could shower, he said, "He wants you." If Henry cried at night, Daniel rolled over and covered his head with a pillow. If I asked for help, he said, "You wanted to keep him. Handle it." That sentence became his favorite weapon. You wanted to keep him. As if Henry was not his child too. As if I had trapped him. As if my son's existence was an insult he was being forced to tolerate. The first weeks after birth blurred together. I slept in pieces. I ate whatever I could grab with one hand. My body hurt. My emotions swung between numbness and panic. Daniel moved through the house like Henry, and I were a problem he was waiting to solve. Then Ashley appeared. At first, I only knew there was someone. Daniel started coming home late. He said he needed air. Then he said he had plans. Then he stopped explaining. One night, while I was rocking Henry in the nursery, my phone lit up with a message from an account I didn't recognize. It was a photo. Daniel was sitting across from a young woman in a hotel bar, his hand on her knee. A message followed. "He hates coming home to you." Then another. "He says the baby isn't his." I sat there in the dark with my son against my chest, reading messages from the woman my husband was seeing while I was still recovering from childbirth. I didn't answer. That made her bolder. Over the next 2 weeks, Ashley sent screenshots, photos, and little comments designed to cut exactly where I was already bleeding. "He says you trapped him. He says you're unstable. He says he's getting rid of you soon." I blocked her. She made another account. When Daniel came home, I showed him one of the messages. He barely looked at it. "Maybe stop embarrassing yourself online," he said. "You're not going to deny it?" He opened the fridge. "Deny what?" "You're seeing her." He took out a bottle of water and turned slowly. "And?" That one word changed something in me. And. Like our marriage was already dead, and I was stupid for standing beside it. "We have a newborn," I said. His mouth twisted. "You have a newborn." I wanted to pack a bag that night. I wanted to call my mother and tell her everything. But every practical thought hit another wall. Where would I go? How would I pay for Henry's formula? What if Daniel followed me? What if he said I kidnapped our son? He had already started telling me I was unstable. He had already planted the idea that Henry wasn't his. From the outside, Daniel looked calm, responsible, and reasonable. I looked exhausted. I looked emotional. I looked exactly like the kind of woman he wanted people to dismiss. So I stayed longer than I should have. And Daniel mistook that for weakness. The breaking point came over formula. Not money for myself. Not clothes. Not anything dramatic. Formula. Henry had a sensitive stomach, and the brand he tolerated was expensive. I had stretched the last container as far as I could. That morning, I shook the empty can, hoping there was one scoop left at the bottom. There wasn't. I checked my account and felt my stomach drop. I didn't have enough. So I waited for Daniel. I hated waiting. I hated needing to ask. I hated that my baby's next bottle depended on the mood of a man who had spent weeks pretending he wasn't a father. Daniel came home just after 7. He looked relaxed. Too relaxed. I was standing in the kitchen with the empty formula can. I need money for Henry's formula, I said. He glanced at it. No. I thought I heard him wrong. He needs to eat. Then figure it out. I don't have enough. That sounds like poor planning. Poor planning. I had been awake every 2 hours for weeks. I had skipped meals to make money stretch. I had begged my family not to worry because I was terrified Daniel would punish me for telling the truth. And he was standing there calling our hungry baby poor planning. He is your son, I said. Daniel's face tightened. Don't start. He is hungry. I said don't start. You don't get to punish a baby because you hate me. His eyes changed. That was the warning. He stepped closer. Say that again. I should have stopped. I know that. But I was exhausted, scared, and angry in a way I had never felt before. You don't get to punish our baby. Daniel moved fast. He grabbed my arm and forced me back against the counter. Not enough to leave the kind of injury people immediately understand, but enough to make me gasp. Enough to remind me that he was stronger. Enough to make the room shrink. You raise your voice at me again, he said, and I will make sure everyone knows what kind of mother you really are. Henry started crying in the nursery. That sound cut through everything. I pulled away and ran down the hall. I shut the bedroom door behind me and grabbed the wooden bat I kept under the bed. I had put it there weeks earlier, not because I wanted to use it, but because I needed to feel like there was something between Daniel and my baby if he came at us angry. When he opened the bedroom door, I held it with both hands. Stay away from us, I said. My voice cracked. My hands shook. Daniel stopped. For 1 second, I thought he understood he had gone too far. Then he smiled. He took out his phone and pressed record. His voice changed completely. Calm. Concerned. Almost gentle. I just came home, and my wife is threatening me with a weapon, he said to the camera. I froze. Daniel, stop. He angled the phone toward me. She has been unstable for weeks. I'm worried about the baby. Stop lying. Look at her, he said. She's screaming. I'm not screaming. But I was crying. I was shaking. I looked terrified and furious and broken. I looked exactly how he wanted me to look. Daniel lowered the phone after a few more seconds. Then he smiled. Mine will destroy you first. He left the room. I stayed awake the whole night with Henry beside me. At first, all I could think about was the video. Not what had happened before it. Not the way he grabbed me. Not the formula can sitting empty in the kitchen. Just the part he had recorded. Me holding a bat. Me crying. Daniel sounding calm. If he showed that to the police, to a judge, to anyone who didn't know the full story, what would they see? A dangerous mother. That was when I finally understood the pattern. The insults. The accusations. The cheating. The messages from Ashley. The money control. The way he pushed and pushed until I reacted. He wasn't just being cruel. He was trying to make me break in a way he could use. I looked down at Henry. He had finally fallen asleep, his little hand curled against my shirt. I'm sorry, I whispered. Not because I had done something wrong. Because I had waited too long to protect him. At 3 a.m, I opened a new email account Daniel didn't know about. I wrote everything down. Tonight, Daniel grabbed my arm after I asked for formula money. I ran to the bedroom. I held the bat because I was scared. He recorded only that part and said his video would destroy me first. I took a photo of the mark on my arm and attached it. Then I sent the email to myself. That was the first page of my folder. After that night, I stopped arguing. That was the hardest part. Every part of me wanted to scream, confront him, demand that he admit what he was doing. But screaming helped him. Silence helped me think. When Ashley messaged me, I took screenshots before blocking her. When Daniel refused to help with baby supplies, I saved receipts and bank records. When he accused me of cheating, I answered by text instead of arguing out loud. You know Henry is your son. I have never been unfaithful. I am willing to do a paternity test through the court if needed. He hated that. He preferred fights. Fights were messy. Texts were clean. His replies became shorter and colder. Stop trying to look innocent. You know what you did. You're unstable. I saved every message. I didn't tell him I was building a record. I didn't tell him I had started sleeping with my phone under my pillow. I didn't tell him I wrote notes after every incident, with dates and times, before my memory could blur from fear. The next step was telling someone. I chose Laura. She had been my friend for years, but I had drifted away after marrying Daniel. That wasn't an accident. He made people feel inconvenient. If I made plans, he sighed. If I visited family too long, he acted wounded. If someone called, he asked why they needed me so much. Eventually, isolation became easier than explaining. But Laura had never fully disappeared. I met her at a small coffee shop while my mother watched Henry. I wore long sleeves even though it wasn't cold. Laura noticed immediately. What happened? She asked. I looked down at my coffee. She reached across the table and touched my hand. Amanda. That was all it took. I told her enough. Not everything. I couldn't say everything yet. But I told her Daniel had grabbed me. I told her he was threatening custody. I told her he had a video of me holding a bat after he scared me. Laura's face went pale. Do you still have marks? I nodded. Did you take pictures? Yes. Good. That word surprised me. Good. Not because it happened. Because there was proof. Laura didn't ask what I had done to upset him. She didn't tell me marriage was hard. She didn't tell me to calm down. She said, you need help from someone who understands this. I can't just leave, I whispered. He'll say I kidnapped Henry. He'll say I'm unstable. Then don't do it alone. She gave me the number for Thomas, a legal aid advocate she trusted. I called from the coffee shop bathroom with my hand over my mouth so no one would hear me crying. Thomas listened quietly. Then he said, are you and the baby safe today? I looked at myself in the mirror. Tired eyes. Milk stain on my shirt. Hands shaking. For now. Then we make a safety plan, he said. Not revenge. Not a fight. A plan. That sentence became my anchor. A plan. Thomas told me what to document. He told me not to threaten Daniel, not to post anything, not to answer Ashley emotionally, and not to send angry messages. Let him keep talking, Thomas said. People like this usually think they are smarter than paper. So I let Daniel keep talking. He sent messages accusing me of being unfit. He refused to provide money for Henry and put it in writing. He demanded a paternity test, but ignored every message where I offered to handle it legally. He told me that if I tried to leave, he would make sure no one believed me. Every time my hands shook, I reminded myself, folder. My mother and sister found out next. I didn't plan to tell them yet, but one afternoon Carol came over and saw me flinch when Daniel's car pulled into the driveway. She looked at Rachel, then back at me. No, my mother said quietly. I tried to smile. No what? She stepped closer. Do not lie to me. I broke. Not loudly. Not dramatically. I just sat at the kitchen table and started crying. Rachel took Henry from my arms. Carol sat beside me. I told them about the accusations, the formula, the messages, and the video. My mother's face changed in a way I had never seen. You and the baby are coming with me. I can't just run. Yes, you can. No, I said, wiping my face. If I run without a plan, he uses it. I need to do this right. Rachel looked terrified. What if he hurts you before then? I'm not staying long. That night, Daniel came home in a strangely good mood. He had no idea the walls were closing in. He kissed the top of my head like nothing had happened. I went still. What? He asked. Nothing. He glanced toward the nursery. Still crying all day? He's a baby. Daniel rolled his eyes. You always have an excuse. I didn't answer. He hated that. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was Ashley again, from another account. He says once the test comes back, you're gone. Attached was another photo meant to humiliate me. This time, I didn't cry. I took a screenshot, saved it, and sent it to the folder. Then I fed Henry, washed his bottles, and waited for Daniel to make the mistake I knew he would make. It came 3 days later. Daniel texted me while he was out. Pack your things soon. I talked to someone. You don't have a chance if I show the video. I stared at the words for a long time. Then another message came through. You should be careful how you act around me. Cameras make people honest. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. Because he had no idea how much he had just helped me. That evening, he tried to start another fight. I was in the kitchen rinsing bottles when he walked in. "You look awful," he said. I kept washing. "You're ignoring me now?" "No. You think that makes you look innocent?" I turned off the water. "I'm not doing this." He stepped closer. I didn't move. "I can make you disappear from his life," he said. My hands went cold. I kept my voice steady. "Don't threaten me. It isn't a threat. It's a fact. Henry needs stability." Daniel laughed. "That child is nothing to me unless a judge forces me to care." I didn't answer. He kept going because he thought my silence meant fear. "You should have taken the hint at the hospital." I knew the second I saw him. "You knew what?" "That he wasn't mine." "You know that isn't true." Daniel leaned closer. "I know what I can make people believe." That was the line I needed. I didn't yell. I didn't react. I waited until he walked away. Then I opened my phone and texted him from the same room. "You just said Henry is nothing to you unless a judge forces you to care. You also said you know what you can make people believe. I need you to stop threatening custody to scare me." For a few minutes, he didn't answer. Then his reply came. "Maybe stop acting like someone who deserves to lose." I sent that to the folder too. The escape happened on a Thursday morning. It wasn't dramatic. There was no screaming. No final showdown. No suitcase thrown down the stairs. Daniel left early, annoyed because Henry had cried before sunrise. At the door, he looked back at me and said, "Try to be useful today." I nodded. He left. I waited until his car was gone. Then I moved. My mother arrived 20 minutes later. Rachel came with her. Laura pulled in behind them. No one wasted time. We packed only what mattered. Henry's documents. My documents. Formula. Diapers. Medication. A few clothes. The folder saved in 2 places. The screenshots from Ashley. The photos of the marks on my arm. The messages where Daniel refused support. The texts where he threatened custody. The message where he said his video would destroy me. I left behind the couch, the dishes, most of my clothes, and the nursery decorations I had painted while pregnant. That hurt more than I expected. I stood in the nursery for a few seconds, looking at the soft little shapes on the wall. Rachel touched my shoulder. "We have to go." "I know." I picked up Henry. He was awake, staring at me with those serious baby eyes like he understood something important was happening. I whispered, "We're going now." My mother drove us to the courthouse. Thomas met us there. I had imagined the process would feel more dramatic. Like someone would immediately understand everything and say the nightmare was over. It wasn't like that. It was paperwork, waiting, fluorescent lights, and me trying not to fall apart while Henry slept in his carrier. But the evidence mattered. The photos mattered. The messages mattered. The pattern mattered. And Daniel's video, the one he thought would destroy me, mattered too. Because without context, it looked bad. With context, it looked like what it was. A piece of a trap. Thomas helped me explain the sequence clearly. I asked for formula money. Daniel grabbed my arm and threatened me. I ran to the bedroom because I was scared. He recorded only the part where I was holding the bat. Then he sent messages admitting he intended to use that video to take Henry from me. The court granted an emergency protective order first. Temporary custody came with it. Not forever. Not magically. Not the whole battle finished in one day. But enough. Enough to keep Daniel away while the legal process began. Enough to protect Henry. Enough to let me breathe. When Daniel found out, he called me over and over. I didn't answer. Then the messages started. "What did you do?" "Amanda, answer me. You think this is smart? You're making a mistake." Then, "You stole my son." I stared at that one for a long time. My son. After months of calling Henry a mistake, after refusing formula, after saying he was nothing unless a judge forced him to care, Daniel suddenly wanted to sound like a father. I did not reply. Thomas had warned me. No emotional responses. Let the order speak. So I let it speak. Daniel tried to use his video. Of course he did. He sent it to people first. Friends. A few relatives. Anyone who might listen before the truth caught up. Kelly called me 2 days after I left. She and Victoria had been friends from before my marriage, but I had barely spoken to them since things got bad. Her voice was careful. "Amanda. Daniel sent a video." "I know. He says you threatened him." "I know." There was a pause. "Is it true?" I closed my eyes. "That I held a bat?" "Yes." "That I threatened him?" "No." "What happened?" So I told her enough. Then I sent her one screenshot. The message where Daniel wrote that I didn't have a chance if he showed the video. Kelly called back crying. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't know. A lot of people didn't know. Because I had been quiet. Because Daniel looked normal. Because he knew how to sound calm while hurting me. But once the legal process started, his version of the story weakened fast. The paternity test confirmed what I had said from the beginning. Henry was his son. Daniel didn't apologize. He said there must have been a mistake. Then that message became part of the record too. Ashley disappeared almost immediately. I don't know if Daniel ended things or if she realized this was no longer exciting. Either way, the midnight messages stopped. The accounts went quiet. The woman who had spent weeks trying to humiliate me vanished the moment consequences appeared. Daniel's family found out next. I didn't contact them. I didn't need to. The paperwork reached places Daniel didn't expect. People asked questions. His polished version of himself cracked. He told people I had ruined his life. Maybe in his mind I had. But all I really did was stop protecting his image. There is a difference. The final custody decision took longer because real life takes longer. There were hearings, statements, more documents, and more mornings where I woke up afraid something would go wrong. But Daniel could not explain the messages. He could not explain refusing to help with formula. He could not explain calling Henry nothing. He could not explain why he recorded me only after I ran from him. He could not explain why his own texts showed he was planning to use fear as a custody strategy. Eventually, Henry stayed with me, and Daniel was only allowed contact through proper legal channels while he completed the steps required by the court. He hated that most. Not losing me. Not losing the house. Not even losing the story he tried to tell. He hated being told no. Months later, I moved into a small apartment with Henry. It was not impressive. The hallway light flickered. The kitchen cabinet stuck when it rained. For the first 2 weeks, I slept on a mattress on the floor because I couldn't afford a bed frame yet. But there was no fear in the walls. That made it feel beautiful. The first night Henry slept 6 hours, I woke up in a panic because the quiet scared me. I sat up and listened. No footsteps. No angry voice. No phone buzzing with cruelty. Just my son breathing softly beside me. I cried then. Not because I was sad. Because my body finally understood the danger had passed. A few days ago, Kelly and Victoria came over with groceries and a second-hand rocking chair. We sat in the living room while Henry napped, and for the first time, I told them almost everything. The messages. The formula. The video. The folder. The way I had gone quiet on purpose. When I finished, Kelly looked devastated. Victoria didn't speak for a while. Then she said, "I understand why you did it. But it scares me that you had to become that strategic." I looked at her. Strategic? She nodded. You documented him. You waited. You built a case. I was trying to survive. I know, she said quickly. I'm not judging you. But I could see how uncomfortable she was. Kelly wiped her eyes and said, "I just wish you had called us sooner." I wish I had too. That was the truth. I wish I had left the first time he insulted me while I was pregnant. I wish I had called my mother from the hospital. I wish I had understood that a man who rejects his newborn to punish his wife is not confused. He is dangerous in a quiet way. But wishing does not change the road behind you. It only teaches you where not to walk again. Now my life is smaller than it used to be. Smaller, but mine. I make Henry's bottles without asking permission. I buy what he needs. I answer my phone without dread. I sleep in my own home without listening for the sound of Daniel's key. Sometimes I still feel angry. Not the loud kind. A colder kind. I think about Daniel standing in the doorway with his phone raised, so sure he had captured the perfect version of me to destroy. I think about him saying, "Mine will destroy you first." And I think about how strange justice can be. Because in the end, his video did not destroy me. It exposed the trap. My folder, built one screenshot at a time while feeding a baby in the dark, became the thing that carried us out. I don't know if that makes me strong or simply changed. Maybe survival does not always leave you softer. Maybe sometimes it leaves sharp edges. All I know is that my son is safe. Daniel no longer decides what happens inside my home. And every night, when I lay Henry down and hear nothing but peace, I feel the kind of victory that does not need applause. But part of me still wonders. Did I do the right thing by quietly building the case that trapped him in his own lies? Or did living with someone like Daniel teach me how to become too good at playing his game?